as commercial and community facility space in Councilmember Abreu's district. The council is modifying the application to require MIH option 1. Next, we'll vote on the following finance items. 3 preconsidered resolutions sponsored by Councilmember Justin Brannan would amend and restate the property tax rates for fiscal year 2025 in accordance with enacted state legislation. A transparency resolution approving new designations and changes of certain organizations receiving funding in the expense budget. A preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Justin Brannan establishing a new 40-year Article 11 tax exemption for 7 building in Councilmember Salam's district. A preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Justin Brannan establishing a new 40-year Article 11 tax exemption for 1 building in Councilmember Joseph's district. A preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Justin Brannan establishing a new 40-year Article 11 tax exemption for 1 building in Councilmember Rivera's district. Next, we will be voting on 2 appointments. The Council's appointment of Dr. Mohammed Khalid as a member of the New York City Civilian Complaint Review Board, the Queensborough President's reappointment of Udashram Raj Ramprasad as a member of the City Planning Commission. Today, we will also vote on the following pieces of legislation. Resolution 193, sponsored by Councilmember Natasha Williams, would designate October as Youth Empowerment Month annually in the City of New York to recognize, appreciate, and celebrate the successes of young people and their contributions to school and community life. Resolution 508, also sponsored by Councilmember Williams, would designate October 10th annually as Casey Benjamin Day in the City of New York to celebrate the genius of his music and his unique contributions to a variety of music genres. Resolution 518, sponsored by Majority Whip Sylvina Brooks Powers, would declare October as Jamaican Heritage Month in celebration of the rich history, culture, and contributions of Jamaican communities in New York City. A preconsidered resolution sponsored by Council members Crystal Hudson and Tiffany Caban would celebrate the New York Liberty winning the 2024 WNBA championship in their first in the history of the franchise. It would also declare October 20th as New York Liberty Day annually in the City of New York. Introduction 797A, sponsored by Councilmember Althea Stevens, would require the Department of Education to report annually a list of all student clubs and organizations at each school. The DOE would be required to report if any student club or organization has authorization to conduct its activities off school grounds. And Introduction 733A, also sponsored by Councilmember Stevens, would require the DOE to report annually on information related to career and technical education, or CTE, programs. I now invite Councilmember Stevens to come to the podium and tell you all about her legislation.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you to our great speaker, Adrienne Adams, and my colleagues, all of my colleagues, and a special shout out to Chair Rita Joseph, the Chair of Education, and all of my colleagues who continue to fight and advance our city's educational system. Today I'm proud to champion 2 critical pieces of legislation that will greatly bring greater transparency and accountability to New York City's education system. Intro 797, which mandates the Department of Education to report on student clubs and organizations at each of our schools. School clubs play a pivotal role in the personal and social development of our young people. And by requiring the DOE to provide information to facilitate advisory and off-campus activities, we will better be able to evaluate the resources and supports that are available to our students. I say this all the time. After-school programs are not just times for young people to have childcare. It is actually an educational support system that really advances our young people forward. And it has shown, studies have shown that when young people are in after schools and in those programs, they actually not only succeed better in school, but in life themselves, because it's all about youth development. Intro 793 focuses on the future of workforce of our city and requiring the Department of Education to report on the information of career and technical education, CTE programs. By requiring annual reports that will touch key metrics as such as students are enrolled, their internships and participation in internships, and post-graduation outcomes. This information will allow us to ensure that CTE programs are effectively supporting and providing our community with the necessary tools to enter the workforce or higher education. Transparency is important in our city, especially when it comes to investing in our future for all young people who walk the school hallways daily. The reality is that we will be replacing, all of our students will be replacing us and standing here one day. And it is our responsibility to identify any gaps in the road and any program and progress needing to improve it. Let's continue to ensure that students have equal access to program and activities and foster leadership, creativity, and most importantly, community engagement. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Stevens. Introduction 771A, sponsored by Councilmember Linda Lee, would require the DOE to provide parents with information about the interpretation and translation services that DOE offers, including information on how to access such services and examples of how the services might be used. I now invite Councilmember Lee to discuss her bill.
Thank you so much, Speaker Adams and colleagues today. I wanted to thank all of you for being here and excited to talk about Intro 771. And as many of you know, New York is home to an incredible 700 languages if you include all the different dialects, and 3 million of our residents are foreign-born, hailing from over 200 countries, and almost half of our city speaks a language other than English. And I would actually say that Queens probably is where a lot of them start off, which is why we have the best food. Simply put, the success of our education system depends on being able to communicate with parents and students in the languages that they're most familiar with. And our city does not have the resources to address each family's linguistic needs. The Department of Education provides written translation of documents in 9 languages, but interpretation over the phone is also available for another 240 languages. With Intro 771, the City Council will ensure that the DOE more proactively distributes information regarding the city's phone interpretation services to schools and their parents and student bodies. As we pursue greater language accessibility across our city's schools, I want to also thank Chair Joseph and Speaker Adrian Adams for their leadership and partnership on this important issue. And as someone who comes from an AAPI immigrant nonprofit organization, I know all too well how important it is to make sure that our youth are engaged, but especially our parents, and that they're engaged as well. So thank you so much, Speaker.
Introduction 468A, sponsored by Councilmember Natasha Williams, would require the Department of Transportation to make information available on their website regarding traffic control device and speed reducer requests. The bill would require more searchable details, providing clarity about traffic safety requests made by the public, community boards, and elected officials. Introduction 87A, sponsored by Councilmember Rafael Salamanca, would expand reporting requirements on the demographics and outcomes of youth who are in the juvenile justice system. Councilmember Salamanca and Councilmember Williams couldn't join us today, but we thank them both for their work on their legislation. And finally, Introduction 991C, sponsored by Councilmember Julie Menin, would establish a licensing program for New York City hotels with the goal of promoting health and safety. New York City has long regulated businesses in the tourism industry to advance the safety and well-being of New Yorkers and visitors. For example, sightseeing buses and guides, pedicab drivers are all currently required to obtain a license from DCWP, allowing the city to enforce health and safety regulations while giving consumers the information they need. This legislation seeks to align the hotel industry with this standard for front desk coverage, security, and cleanliness. I now invite Councilmember Menin to discuss the details of her legislation.
Well, thank you so much, Speaker Adams, and I really want to thank you for your commitment to this bill and for your incredible leadership. So I couldn't be more thrilled that the Council is voting on Intro 991, also known as the Safe Hotels Act. Cities all across the country license hotels from Washington, D.C. to Denver to Boston to Las Vegas, just to name a few. As a former commissioner of the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, I can tell you firsthand that that agency currently licenses over 45,000 businesses, from parking garages to nail salons and many other businesses, yet not hotels. There are 769 hotels in New York City right now. They have been the subject of 39 murders and over 14,000 criminal complaints to the NYPD. This is an incredibly important public safety bill, and that is why the 5 district attorneys, New York Attorney General Tish James, and the PBA all signed on in support of the bill on public safety grounds. But at the same time, it's also a worker protection bill. The bill provides panic buttons for workers. The majority of workers in hotels are women. Many of them have been victimized by sexual assault, so panic buttons are very important. It also provides certain hygiene and cleanliness standards, so when hotel workers are dealing with harmful chemicals, they have the protection and the resources that they need to deal with that. But the bill is also a licensing bill, and when you think about it, for certain bad actors, like the Umbrella Hotel in Kew Gardens in Queens, where there were hundreds of community complaints and finally a murder in the beginning of 2021, then Mayor Bill de Blasio tried to shut that hotel down, and guess what? He couldn't, because there was no jurisdiction, because there was no licensing. That's why licensing matters, and that's why this bill is so incredibly important. In addition, the bill requires training to identify human trafficking, which is a serious problem across hotels. New York State ranks 4th amongst all states in terms of human trafficking. And it also bans subcontracting, and that is important because subcontracting places workers in deplorable working conditions and subjects them oftentimes to wage theft. To be clear, the bill exempts hotels of 100 rooms or less from the subcontracting ban, but still requires them to adhere to the public safety and worker protection. So in closing, I'm thrilled that the bill has a bipartisan supermajority of 40 council members on board, in addition to the Queensborough president, Manhattan Borough president, the 5 DAs, and an incredible labor coalition really led by HTC, who I want to thank for their wonderful leadership and support, as well as the CLC, 32BJ, DC 37, NISNA, and many other unions. I lastly want to thank HANIC and the numerous hotel owners and operators and other stakeholders. And lastly, once again, want to reiterate my support for Speaker Adams and her support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, Julie.
Finally.
A long time coming. This concludes our stated agenda. And with that, we will take on-topic questions first. Hi. Good.
So I wanted to ask about something on the agenda today, which is the bill that you're introducing to...
That's not on topic.
That's not being voted to.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought I saw it on the agenda.
No, that's
Yeah,
voting on. That's why.
right. The legislation that we just discussed, we're on topic right now, but we'll get there.
Okay, got it.
No worries.
Apologies, I didn't mean to do that. So Councilmember Menon, I just wanted to clarify something. There's been obviously a few amendments to this bill. The licensing is every 2 years or every 1 year?
It's every 2 years, and that was really based on feedback from meeting with stakeholders. The original bill was every 1 year. We met again with numerous owners and operators who really wanted to push for the 2 years, which we agreed to. Great, thank you.
No, not on topic, off topic. Any on-topic questions?
Good legislation. Going once, going twice. We'll go off.
We'll come back to you, Michelle.
Michelle. Hi.
So I wanted to ask about the 2 days of hearings that we just seen from the council on CBS.
Mm-hmm.
I was there yesterday when Reynoso gave his remarks in support of City of Yes, and he brought up the example of MIH being unpopular on the community board level back when he was in the council. So I just wanted to ask you how, this time around, how is strong community board opposition to City of Yes informing your views now that you're in the council and it's, I guess, a new proposal?
Great question. Thank you. Well, a lot of folks know, I was a community board chair, and ULURP land use was very, very important, still is, obviously, to community boards. What I loved about yesterday's hearing, the 2 days worth of hearing, over 14 hours yesterday, and Chair Kevin Riley, I have to give him a shout out. He was Superman. We were watching up until 11:57 last night when he gavelled out of that meeting. And he beat my meeting, by the way, on Rikers like 6 years ago, right, Bob? I was a little over 10 hours. But the difference, I'm sorry, I'm digressing. But the difference, ladies and gentlemen, was we didn't do virtual 7 years ago. So we had everybody in chambers on that one, but back to you. The input of community boards, civic associations, New Yorkers, advocates, agitators, everybody's opinion is always important in public hearings. Particularly for this one, which is so impactful, this proposal is so impactful. The opinions of the community boards are going to be seriously considered, just like the testimony of everyone else that was there presenting yesterday in their own behalf, be it personal or in behalf of their organizations. So the answer is everything is going to be weighted. We don't lessen anybody's weight. Community boards, we know that they are the first line of governance, you know, for our residents, for our communities, and of course, their input is going to be vital on this particular legislation, as will everyone else's.
Can I ask about this? Okay. So I wanted to ask about the bill that's being introduced today on to form another charter revision commission. Have you heard from the mayor on the bill? Has he said anything about the allocation of appointments per elected official, anything like that?
No, the bill hasn't been introduced yet, so I haven't heard anything from the mayor on a personal level regarding that yet.
Two questions. We can do two ones. Okay. One of the things that factored in people's testimony yesterday, and you kind of presaged this at our last regular get-together, is the current situation with Mayor Adams being under indictment. And so it seems that in the average mind of some people that came forward to step up and speak about this, for them, it's kind of like putting the cart before the horse. It's hard for them to envision buying into this very ambitious plan, which is generational in consequence, while the mayor is under indictment. So can you split the hair there and explain how we have to soldier on, but you can understand their reluctance about dealing with the power structure, whether an indicted mayor is still presiding over the city?
Well, regardless of the mayor's circumstances, you know, what may or may not be, the city of New York is in dire need of affordable housing. And that is the bottom line for all of us. I dare say all of us in this room realize that fact. So again, regardless of circumstances, we still have to face that fact, and we still have to act one way or another when it comes to providing housing and hopefully affordable housing to everybody that needs it.
Second question. Today, Councilman Chris Marty will be introducing legislation which would prevent the city of New York from forcing New York City retired civil servants into what they believe are predatory Aetna Medicare Advantage plan, which is neither Medicare nor an Advantage. Since this bill was introduced last year, UFT President Michael Mulgrew, which is represented about a third of the civil service, has withdrawn from this strategy, from the Aetna strategy. And Aetna itself, if you're reading this Wall Street Journal, is in serious trouble right now. They just fired their CEO. Why won't this council act as the councils have in previous periods of time to protect retired civil servants, retirees, and access to Medicare?
Thank you for the question. I've said it before. Seniors, retirees are indeed a priority for me and for this council. If legislation is introduced today, we're going to take it through the legislative process and we will proceed by there. I think it's a little preemptive to discuss it today at this particular presser.
Just to follow up on that question, actually, I was hoping, Speaker Adams, if you would be supporting the bill if it was to go through.
The same answer. We don't really have the bill yet, so it will go through the legislative process and we'll see. Thank you.
Hi, Speaker.
Hi, Kelly.
How are you?
Good.
I wanted to ask about the bill that you're going to introduce. I want to know, is there any particular areas you would want the commission to look at? A majority of the appointments will come from you. And would any of those areas include what you tried to do earlier this year, which is more oversight of mayoral appointments? And then Mayor Adams was asked about this bill yesterday. He says that it's about balance of power, but in your announcement of the legislation, you said it's about bringing back confidence into government. So I wonder, is this about bringing back confidence in government? What do you define that? Is it because the mayor's under indictment and we've seen so many shakeups in the administration?
Great question, and thank you for that. what we hope to do with this Charter Revision Commission is we want to make sure that we're being transparent about its mission to best align, with practices. I can't really speak to the mayor's hypothetical plans, but ours are clear. We are prioritizing a pro-democracy commission, and if others want to engage in anti-democratic efforts, that's for them to explain, but charter revision commissions have to be thoughtful, deliberative, and focused on improving the city charter to benefit the lives of New Yorkers. We have to have a commission that, number one, reads the charter, and number two, takes the time, once they understand the depth and the breadth of the Constitution of the City of New York, to make informed decisions on how to move forward. And that's the intention of this commission.
Would you want them to look at the mayoral appointments for the city council to have more oversight over that?
That is certainly consideration for us. Our bill and legislation on advice and consent is still very much an item for the city council. I think that particularly because of things that have happened over the past couple of months, I think that there is no greater time to revisit that.
Speaker, back to the City of Yes. Might be premature to say this, but after the past 2 days of hearings, are you expecting significant changes to the plan? I know we heard a lot of opposition to the elimination of the parking minimums, for example. Was that something you would want to see out of the plan?
We are certainly going to take all of the testimony, and we still have so much of it that was submitted, written. We really want to be deliberate about our about whatever final decisions are made with this proposal. So be that adding to it or detracting from it, we want to make sure that we consider all of the testimony, and we still have to do that. Consider all of the testimony, and we still have to do that.
And one more thing, do
Sure.
you feel like you're in a stronger, given the mayor's current situation? I know there, in addition to what's in the City of Yes plan around housing, do you feel like confident that you can get those things done, given, all the turmoil over there?
The power of negotiation, Ethan. I think that the council we always feel good about our negotiation. We feel good about negotiation going into the budget, and I think that we were a perfect example passing this last budget, and that was prior to any of the issues that are going on right now in the administration. So we feel confident in, working through this proposal, just as confident as we did working through the budget. Thank you.
Yeah, following up on the questions about the charter revision commission, I'm wondering if you have any response to reporting that the mayor was thinking about forming his own commission, and if you've received any indication from City Hall that they are considering going along with that.
I haven't received any information or insight from the administration as far as another charter revision commission coming from them. I think that the information that was presented yesterday was more on a hypothetical, and some of the information that I heard about seemed to take it and kind of stretch it to places where, quite frankly, I don't know if really warranted that stretch. So we'll see what happens, whether that's a hypothetical situation or whether indeed it does come.
I had a separate question about Adams's comments on Trump's comments about him, obviously last week at the Al Smith dinner, and then a few weeks earlier, Adams did not take repeated opportunities to disavow. What do you think of that for Adams to not disavow those comments? And I wonder if you agree, Adams seemed to imply that he was solely focused on New York City, where we don't fairly super competitive. Do you agree that New York City
My personal opinion is that New York, we're not isolated by anything. We are leaders in New York. So I'll just leave that there. As far as anything that the mayor may or not be thinking with regard to what the former president thinks about him or, says about him, I can't really respond to that. I don't know, what types of thoughts go on, with the mayor with regard to the former president, so I can't really respond to that question appropriately.
Johnson Stover, DOI Commissioner, produced a report about the $4 billion homeless complex that provides shelter for 86,000 people. I know you're very aware of that workforce and have done a lot to try to raise them up, but those people still get food stamps for doing hands-on work for the homeless. In that report, it was revealed that some CEOs are making $500,000 to $700,000. I was wondering if on Wall Street, and I never say anything nice about Wall Street, but publicly traded stocks, at least if you look it up, the multiple for New York State to take a leadership role in accountability for nonprofits and require a similar thing, so that when we're making our charitable donations, whether it be, I call them Fugazi nonprofits like Presbyterian Hospital, that we have that kind of disclosure in the nonprofit sector.
Thank you for the question, Bob. And I think you know me well enough to know that I will always, always be on the side of equity and fairness, and this is indeed a situation where that is called for. What our state partners will do, what this council will do, still, is in the balance. But as far as the injustices that are being done to workers as we speak, we firmly, come against that, and will continue to look forward and look ahead to do our part to change it.
Something that might be viable, the idea of having that kind of transparency as part of the process, where you have the CEO pay and the average pay disclosed just like public and corporate.
I think transparency is always a good thing.
Thank you all.
Oh, give Kelly one more.
Yes, sorry. Okay. Yesterday on the City of Yes, city officials, in particular, or 2 days ago, talked about more housing not affecting areas of the city where there's serious flood issues. That's an issue in Southeast Queens. They said that it's not going to have a serious impact. I'm wondering what you thought about them saying that, because we do know that that's an issue. I've been out there myself.
Yep.
And do you think that that's going to be something that you're going to put into whatever changes you want to see with the city of Yes?
You get the prize for the best question of the day, especially hitting my home in Southeast Queens, and the flooding issues and the infrastructure that is severely lacking, that has been lacking for decades in areas like my own in Southeast Queens. I think that, when we questioned the administration around infrastructure, that was one of the most important issues that will be considered when it comes to our decision